You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. We have a jam-packed program today. There's lots inside the headlines. There's a Surrealism Corner visit, an especially important Fighting Words today, and at the very tail of the show, a new little feature, The Last Straw, which is sometimes one to cling to. My guests are spectacular today. The engineer who oversees making the bridges and roads of Los Angeles yet earthquake-resistant, the activist who started the now global Bring Back Our Girls campaign about the Nigerian schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram, and the world's foremost classical guitarist who also plays jazz and rock, Sharon Isbin. But first we need to look inside the headlines. A lot going on inside the headlines. We better get right to it. These are three related stories, if one only connects the dots. Not comparing them, not weighing them as to which is worse, but noticing the connections. There's a new report from the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama, on the history of lynchings in the United States. It's the result of 5 years of research and 160 visits to sites around the South. The authors of the report compiled an inventory of 3,959 victims of what they're calling racial terror lynchings in 12 southern states from 1877 to 1950. There were over 100 in one day. Next comes the process of selecting lynching sites where the organization plans to erect markers and memorials. We need to support this initiative because it will force people to reckon with the narrative line of the country's racial history, rather than denying it and shrinking from that history. Efforts to count the number of lynchings in the United States go back at least to 1882, when the Chicago Tribune began publishing each January a list of all executions and lynchings in the previous year, and then the Tuskegee Institute began releasing a list in 1912, and in 1919 the NAACP followed. But this report, just released, says that the new inventory has 700 names that were not on any of the previous lists, and that the toll is so amazing that there were even one-time massacres of large numbers of African Americans in Arkansas in 1919 and in Louisiana in 1887. So I think this is an important thing for everyone to read and to be supportive of the attempt to establish memorials and markers historically. Again, if you go to the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama, if you Google that, the website will come up and the report. Another report is by the Everytown for Gun Safety group, a group that recently released a study finding a noteworthy connection between mass shooting incidents and domestic or family violence. What do you know? What have we been saying for 40 years? The study found that more than half of the 110 mass shootings in the United States between January of 2009 and July of 2014 included the murder of a current or former spouse, or an intimate partner, or a family member. And the connection is not limited to mass shootings. An analysis of the criminal justice history of hundreds of thousands of offenders in Washington state, for example, suggests that a felony domestic violence conviction is the single greatest predictor of future violent crime by men. And then the third thing is a report issued by the United Nations Human Rights Council, posted on the website of the council, that notices attacks on schools have occurred in at least 70 countries from 2009 to 2014, specifically directed at girls and parents and teachers who advocate gender equality in education. The UN data is an estimated 3,600 attacks against institutions, teachers, and students in 2012 alone. And although constitutional guarantees are locked in more than 140 countries and a global consensus prevails about the right to education for all, the attacks against girls accessing education persist and in some countries appear to be on the rise. The report, conducted by the Women's Human Rights and Gender section of the Human Rights Council, was an assessment based on a compilation of research included by other UN agencies and outside rights groups and academics. And I might add, it is not only occurring in Pakistan, where, of course, the girl student who won the Nobel Prize, Malala, got shot in the head, in the face, but also in Afghanistan, where it tends to be less shooting and more poisoning and acid attacks in the face, but also in northern Uganda, where the Lord's Resistance Army has been attacking girls, and of course in Nigeria, where Boko Haram has been abducting and killing girls, and in Central America, where there are documented cases on the rise of sexual violence, threats, and harassment of girls by criminal gangs that force them to abandon school. I would urge that we get a hold of that report as well. And there's insufficient time here for more than a few words about the furor over President Obama's telling factual truths that put the terror and butchery of the Islamic State into a correct historical context, along with Christianity and other institutionalized religions. This, of course, threw the religious right into a total snit, and so a lot of, unfortunately, middling liberals went in the snit as well. But in fact, the Islamic State are pikers compared to, say, the Roman Catholic Church, which was, by the way, not a fringe extremist group, but a world power when it burned to death over 9 million people, mostly women and children, as witches over a 600-year period in Europe called the Burning Time. That required 3, not 1, 3 inquisitions. And it isn't only something that happened back then or during the Crusades. It goes on today when Christian fundamentalists and extremists send their missionaries to African countries and elsewhere in the global south and bring with them toxic homophobia and misogyny, calling it Christianity. In, for example, Uganda, Nigeria, and countries in southern Africa, this has inspired death penalty sentences for being homosexual, and also burning alive by mobs. So what else is new? Jews kill Muslims, and Muslims kill Jews, and Muslims kill Hindus, and Hindus kill Muslims, and even some Buddhists have killed for the supremacy of their God, which isn't supposed to be a god in Buddhism. In other words, Obama just didn't go far enough. It's not the misuse of religion, or the abuse of religion, or the extremism of religion. It's institutionalized religion itself. It's religion. It's externalizing the sacred so you can slaughter in its name. Last, in the program last week, we noted that the young woman aid worker captured by the Islamic State was still waiting. We now know she waits no longer. She only wanted to help the people of the region. Today's program is dedicated with respect to the memory of Kayla Mueller. Now for our first guest. Rossana D'Antonio is a woman engineer. She's Assistant Deputy Director for Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, and she is a wonderful proselytizer for women to go into engineering and for girls to study STEM. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live, Rossana.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Robin. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's exciting to have you. You are only the second woman to achieve the position of Assistant Deputy Director in the history of the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works. To me, the second is a harder job even than the first. It's better because it means we're not just a token, we're there to stay. But it's harder because sometimes people, cut some slack rope for the first, but for the second, none. But you're responsible for some heavy duty stuff, for directing the technical design of all public infrastructure facilities, all of them, including highway, flood control, and bridge structures. And in Los Angeles, given the, how shall I put this delicately, the ground beneath your feet out there, that's an enormous job.
It is. We do provide public infrastructure services for over 10 million residents in Los Angeles County.
Wow.
We're the second largest public works agency in the nation. So yeah, we have a lot to deal with. I like to think that we're doing a great job despite some of the challenges that we have with regards, especially to funding. But I think that we're chugging along. I do want to address one thing though. Sometimes we get caught up in the single-digit success stories. I am the second female assistant deputy director in the department. I'm very proud of that. A lot of work has gone into that, but our department is mainly an engineering organization. Mm. And as you know, females are still very much underrepresented in engineering.
Yeah.
But we have a very progressive director, Gail Farber, and she's made sure that we design a department that is very diverse. And so we've gone out nationwide in the last few years to recruit the top talent. Mm-hmm. So we do have a lot of a diverse workforce in the entry level, and we also have a lot of females in middle management. And so I'm hoping that it'll just be a matter of time before we can say we have parity at the top level positions.
Well, it's encouraging. At least we're in the pipeline.
That's right, we are.
And in so many places, we haven't even approached the queue for the pipeline. So this is very encouraging, especially in a time where I, like many American citizens, are really concerned about infrastructure in this country, bridges and roads and buildings and public works, because the right wing that controls our Congress seems to feel that, oh my God, we can't spend any money on that because it might take some away from rich folks. And it might also, surprise, give jobs to people who need them in building the roads and building the bridges. And at some point, the infrastructure is going to collapse. So
yes, unfortunately, it does take disasters to kind of bring awareness to some of the shortcomings that we have. I don't know if you know this, the American Society of Civil Engineers has been working diligently at trying to bring awareness to the gas tax. That is.
I didn't. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the gas tax is a funding source used to, and it's mainly, as the name pertains. It is a tax that's put on the gasoline for our vehicles, and it's a gas tax that has not been increased since the 70s. Huh. And so obviously the amount of revenue that comes in to fund some of our infrastructure, mainly roads and bridges, has stalled. Mm-hmm. It hasn't kept up with inflation, and now with the energy efficient vehicles that we have, obviously the revenue is even less than what it normally should be.
Right.
We've had a couple of disasters, and so we need to take action. And I think ASCE has been very, very proactive in trying to bring an awareness to see if our Congress people can actually provide a sustainable funding source for our transportation system.
That would be nice.
That's something that we're watching closely, and I think I'm hopeful that we can take action before anything else happens.
And is it that we're up against the lobby for the oil companies who don't want a tax or a raised tax on gasoline?
It's all about politics.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Why do I even ask? When will I ever learn? Well, let's talk also about the fact that you are an outspoken leader and advocate for women in STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And you lead an annual Los Angeles County Women's Leadership Conference that draws more than 500 women from all across the country. And you had one in, I guess, last November?
That's correct, yes. So I'm sure you know when Maria Shriver was First Lady of California, she had the premier women's conference, and it was very inspirational. Several of our females here in the department would attend, And when she left Sacramento, well, then the conference went with her.
Oh, dear.
And so there was a tremendous void, and we felt that we needed some sort of vehicle that would provide that inspiration that we were no longer getting. And so we decided to go out on a limb and design our own women's leadership conference.
Great.
And it started kind of like a grassroots effort, if you will. It was a small conference the very first year, 5 years ago, attracted 300, mainly county-wide attendees, and there were a lot of females. And here we are. It was never meant to be an annual event, and here we are 5 years after the fact. We are now at 600.
Wow.
We hosted at the Pasadena Convention Center. It's now open to the public. And like you said, we have several speakers that fly across the nation to bring us their inspirational leadership stories. So it's something I'm very, very proud of. I think it certainly shows that there's a need for these types of forums.
Yeah.
And I think this is here to stay.
Well, congratulations. That's a wonderful thing, and it's a beautiful example also of replacing what was sort of top-down inspired activism with grassroots trickle up. And where I come from, it's always better to have the latter. So you made your own conference, and it's off and running. What can we do, Rossana? You're not the first guest, nor will be the last that we've had on talking about women in engineering, and the difficulty women have in getting into it and in staying in it. What can we do, or should we be doing more to encourage that? I noticed recently there's a series of commercials, television commercials, which have lots of little girls as well as a few little boys talking about solving problems and saying brightly into the camera, "That's what I want to do. I want to be an engineer." And it gladdened my heart. But that's not enough. What should we be doing that we're not yet doing?
Yeah, I think there's a few of these nationwide initiatives. There's one that comes to mind. It's the ExxonMobil one. It's called Be an Engineer. And what it does is it basically highlights what engineering is and what engineers do. I think there's a couple of things that I think
ExxonMobil owes us. They've sullied the waters and the air enough, so they owe us big time. Yeah, go on, go on.
So I think there's a couple of things that we can do. First of all, I think as an industry, I think engineers and engineering, we haven't really done a good job at communicating what engineers do. I mean, I still meet people who tell me that they think that engineers are the ones that drive the trains. And so clearly we're not communicating very well. And other people will just say, well, engineering is all about math and science, and that's very myopic definition.
Yeah.
So I like to tell people that engineering is all about changing the world. You know, I think one of the unintended consequences of that show, CSI, was that it glamorized that profession. And I think there's a lot of kids nowadays that want to go into crime investigations simply because of that show.
So we need something to do for engineering what that did for forensics.
Exactly.
You know, to this day, people still use the phrase, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that or to figure that out. And I always correct them and say, actually, I don't think there really are rocket scientists. The rocket scientists you're referring to are rocket engineers.
That's right. There you go. Exactly. And I think that's one of the major hurdles that we need to do. In other words, we need to rebrand the profession. We need to get it straight. And I think that'll help not only the recruitment of women but men as well, because we do have a shortage of homegrown engineers, and I think ultimately that's going to result in an impact to the country. As it relates to women, what can we do to recruit more women? I think that females who have reached leadership positions or management positions need to get out and make ourselves more visible. You know, it's the whole thing. If you can see it, you can be it.
Exactly.
I think that I wish that more women would have the courage to say that we are feminists. If what we seek is to have the same opportunities as our male peers, that by definition makes us a feminist, and I'm not really sure why there's this hesitancy to admit that. So, and lastly, how can we recruit more women? I would say that we need to go out and talk to kids at all levels, whether it be elementary school, middle school, high school, and basically tell them what engineering is at their levels. make it fun, make it exciting, so that it's not a novelty once they're in high school and they're hearing about it for the first time. And I do that a little bit through ASCE and Society of Women Engineers. I take advantage of the platform that they've already provided in order to make sure that we reach more kids at different age levels and hopefully get them excited in the STEM fields themselves.
Wow, if everybody were like you, we wouldn't have this problem. Rossana, you are absolutely terrific, and it's very comforting to me now every time that I go to LA to know to know that you're watching, and that the buildings won't fall down underneath me, and that the roads and bridges will function. And I thank you for everything that you do for women and all the work that you will do, and also for being with us on Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you so much, Robin. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
We have to pause for a short break here on Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll return in just a minute with the woman who started the Bring Back Our Girls campaign.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. Hadiza Bala Usman is a member of Nigeria's main opposition alliance, the All Progressives Congress. She is the daughter of one of Nigeria's most courageous Pan-Africanists and social critics, himself descended from royalty in the northern states of Kano and Katsina. He became a leading leftist intellectual. She grew up with Mandela posters on her bedroom wall, and she is the woman who created what has become a worldwide campaign called Bring Back Our Girls. Here she is on the phone all the way from Nigeria. Hadiza, welcome to Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you so much, Robin, for having me on.
Well, it's a privilege to have you on. You are the woman who created the campaign Bring Back Our Girls for the more than 200 schoolgirls who were kidnapped by Boko Haram almost a year ago. We've been trying to keep the issue alive on this program, and the women's movement has been trying to keep it alive. But it's just, it's quite maddening in terms of the fickleness of media. How did you come to start the entire campaign?
It was just me being concerned that nobody was raising any awareness about girls' captivity. I remember over a few days after they were captured, the Nigerian military had come out to say that they had rescued them, and I was so elated and excited. But immediately, within hours later, it came back that the girls had not been rescued. So that really got a fire burning in me on the need to say, these girls need to be rescued. We need to raise awareness for them. We cannot keep quiet about it.
Yes.
So we set up, we sent a group email to a few of us, and we just galvanized and expanded on social media, invited everyone. And we had our first major protest march in Abuja on the 30th of April, where we just said, the government needs to rescue our Chibok girls. These are 276 young girls being abducted by Boko Haram when they were writing their GSE examinations. Yeah. This is an appalling situation that a country should be at standstill if 200 young girls are kidnapped.
Yeah, and
at that point, our government was quiet. Our government was in denial. Our government wasn't doing anything to rescue the girls.
That's what's so doubly appalling. I mean, because how can the entire country not be mobilized to do something to get these girls back? Yeah. I as I've said to you, from where I'm coming from, if there ever was a use for Navy SEALs, this is it. They should be, parachuted in to find the girls. There surely is a way to track these people down, the Boko Haram people.
Yeah, absolutely. With technology available to us, it's difficult to assume that 276 girls would just disappear like that.
Yeah.
So there's no way, we as a country with our own military, we would not be able to rescue the girls in a decisive manner. Within the girls, 57 of them escaped while the abduction was taking place.
Yes.
The trucks, they ran off and were able to go back home. So 57 of them escaped and 219 remain in captivity. And today we're 294 days of abduction. They've been in captivity for 294 days.
Oh, my God. I mean, these poor children, they're just traumatized for life.
From the ages of 15 to 18.
I know. So many of them by now have been triply raped, gang raped. They've been pregnant. Some of them have already delivered children. I mean, it's just it staggers the mind. Tell me, Hadiza, I know that you yourself are a progressive activist, and you come from a very distinguished family of progressive activism in Nigeria, and yet you are campaigning. You have thrown in with the Buhari campaign. The elections are coming soon in Nigeria, and against Goodwill Johnson, who I must say has done, so it appears from outside, nothing, or certainly not enough about the girls. Is that the reason why? Buhari himself originally was a general and came to power in a coup. He's not a nice guy either, but is it a matter of choosing between the two unfortunate choices and hoping that Buhari will at least move against Boko Haram?
Yeah, and when you look at the issue of security, where we are as a nation, we need somebody that can take charge of urgency. Buhari had done similar in 1985 when we had Maitini. These were also a similar group of people that had come in and were taking over Kano. Buhari ended that and chased them out of the country. So we need a president that is a commander-in-chief that is in charge, that will be able to end the emergency for us as a people. And outside of that, if you look at the challenges that exist within our security institutions, it's to do with lack of accountability in governance. When you see we have billions of dollars being appropriated for security spending, but you do not see that translating into the futures of the lives of Nigerians. You do not see our military being adequately equipped. Our military are not given their welfare. They are not provided with the right armament to take on Boko Haram. It's so sad that you see our soldiers running away from Boko Haram because they do not have weapons. The bullets, they're counting bullets and giving them. Their food, they're not being fed appropriately. Our soldiers are not being given the appropriate welfare packages. The allowances are not being given to them. The level of corruption within our security institutions, these are some of the things that have breeded and allowed for Boko Haram to thrive because our military are not equipped. Our youth are unemployed, especially within the region of the Northeast. So that allows for such to come and take on, provide them with protection, provide them with allowances, provide them with feeding. So it's a breeding ground for Boko Haram to thrive. Indeed, when you look at some of the issues that brought about Boko Haram, the way we're unable to end it has to do with lack of accountability in governance. The current government has not demonstrated to Nigerians the capacity to end the insurgency. They've not demonstrated the capacity to end corruption. They've not demonstrated the capacity to provide employment. And these three issues are fundamental when it comes to ending the insurgency in Nigeria. And when you look at the Chibok girls, a lot of children and women and young men have been abducted prior to the case of the Chibok girls.
Yes, they have.
In Bonuyadi, young boys were killed in the school. A lot of young boys have been kidnapped. So with the Chibok girls, it's more to do with their number. They were a huge number.
Yes.
Only for the girl child education, they were writing an examination, which is why their voices is loud. But they're symbolic to every other thing that is happening in the northeast part of the country. When you see even abduction of the Chibok girls, the young girls that have been abducted. Recently in Pakistan, over 60 students were killed on the assembly. They were singing our national anthem in the morning of their school. So what sort of a country, what is going on? Where is the leadership in our country?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, it is so heartbreaking because the legacy of colonialism has a very long poison. And the corruption that is so, as you've said, rampant in the Nigerian government is probably partly due to that. What will it take, Hadiza? What will it take to turn Nigeria around? Maybe it will take women in government like Johnson Sirleaf in Liberia. Women tend to be less corruptible.
Well, we have to have a purposeful leadership that is courageous enough to stand and end the endemic corruption we have in our government. Is courageous enough to take on key issues and end it. When you see lack of direction in terms of ensuring our youth are trained, our youth are educated, our youth are provided ample opportunity to have employment, provide an enabling environment where small business can thrive, provide an enabling environment where the girl child is able to be educated, is able to take on work, is able to lead a home. We all know educating the girl child, educating the woman is liberating a community, because women take charge. Women are able to sustain a whole community if they're given opportunity.
Right.
So, I believe that, with the right leadership that is committed, Nigeria will thrive. And President Jonathan has not demonstrated the capacity to do that for our country.
No. I wish you would run for president.
Well, I'm not sure. At an appropriate time, but right now.
Okay, well, that's a good answer. That gives me hope. That gives me hope, indeed. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you are doing for the Chibok girls and all women. And thank you for being with us today. And keep up the wonderful work. We're behind you. We're going to keep this issue alive till those girls are home, and so that it never happens again. That's also part of the problem.
Thank you so much for keeping the voices of the girls alive.
And now it is time for the Surrealism Corner. Well, it's Women's Week at the Vatican. Now, before you pick yourself up on the floor where you have fainted and swooned from laughter, it is Women's Week at the Vatican from February 4th to 7th. It's been a consortium on the subject of women's cultures, equality and difference, the Pontifical Council for Culture in Rome, presided over by Cardinal Gianfranco Ravasi and made up of cardinals and bishops who are all boys. The Pope himself attended a session or two, but his own unfortunate choice of women-related words like, there was the quote, "Europe is now a grandmother, no longer fertile and vibrant." And women theologians, he said, are the strawberries on the cake. Meanwhile, the council, with unerring tin-earedness, enlisted an Italian actress named Nancy Brilli, it's Brilli, to do a 1-minute YouTube video that will explain women to the committee. And you can see it on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and find Nancy Brilli, Brilli, on the Vatican and women, and it'll come right up. It is hilarious. Then, adding insult to injury, the convocation chose as the cover illustration for its study document in preparation for the meeting Man Ray's Venus Restored sculpture from 1936. It is a female nude torso, headless of course, bound in rope. Now you could say that adequately and accurately depicts the Vatican attitude toward women, but I think they meant to show that it was women's condition and that the Vatican was here to cure that. The council does have 7 women consultors, but they don't have a vote. So just don't get yourself all excited about that. All of the boys in skirts have assembled a document in 4 sections. They're rather disjointed sections, but here they are. The first section, they say that they want women and men to be recognized as equal but different, separate but. They cite as an example a famous woman who, when asked which title she liked best, I think in fact this was Indira Gandhi, being witty, answered grandma. Isn't that amazing? And to make their point about difference, the writers of the document said that they wondered whether a man would respond in the same way. What century are these people from? Then the second theme is generativity. They point out that the physicality of women, which makes the world alive, long-living, and able to extend itself, finds in the womb its greatest expression. No mention of women's brains, no mention of women's emotions, no mention. Back to the womb. Section 3 is on the female body, even though, well, you might think we've just come from there. They refer to it as the feminine body. And you know what they take on first? Would it be contraception? Would it be abortion? No, 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 no. Wait for it. It's plastic surgery, because they're upset about the vanity of tummy tucks. Then there's a section on aggression toward women. Now, you think maybe even the church could get it together on this. Certainly nuns have, many nuns have, in creating shelters for battered women. But there's no clear analysis of the hierarchical structures, patriarchal and hierarchical, that create the conditions of women's servitude. Instead, what do we have? We have blame the victim. They refer to the shame of women cowed by depression who accept a level of presumed inferiority. Not that anybody imposes that on women, you understand. Stick with me, not much further to go. The final section is on women and religion. Do not expect to find a reference here to Mary Daly or Rosemary Ruther or Nuns on a Bus or any of the feminist women who have been trying to bring the church into the, 18th century, much less the 19th, 20th, or 21st. They instead protest that they've surveyed women and women don't want ordination. Not that the Catholic Church has been particularly known for caring about public opinion surveys and polls. Well, it's a fun thing. You can get the document online and have a good laugh. Women's Week at the Vatican, with the boys in fancy, lacy frocks. We have to pause again briefly here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I will be back in just a moment with the world's most acclaimed and honored guitarist, classical, jazz, and rock, Sharon Isbin. Do not budge.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back. Sharon Isbin is simply one of the world's preeminent classical guitarists. She has performed at every major venue in the world. She founded the guitar department at the Juilliard School of Music. I first loved her work when she released the complete lute suites of Johann Sebastian Bach, and since then she has released over 25 albums. She's personally won 2 Grammys. She's contributed to a 3rd Grammy-winning album. She commissions pieces for the guitar, and she hasn't had an easy time as a woman, or a feminist, or a lesbian. And she's come out very strongly as all three, in addition to being an artist. Sharon, welcome to Women's Media Center Live. It's good to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to talk with you, Robin.
Well, you are all over the place these days. You are the world's foremost classical guitarist, who, period, and then also who is a woman, period, which was not easy getting there. There's a wonderful documentary called Sharon Isbin Troubadour, which has been playing on PBS stations, I believe. Tell us about that, because so people can learn more.
Well, it was presented by American Public Television, and it began to broadcast nationally in November. So it's been hitting over 200 stations. Millions of people have been able to see it, and the DVD and Blu-ray will appear in March under the Video Artists International label. And you can get information on this by either going to my website, SharonIsbin.com, ISBIN, or SharonIsbinTroubadour.com, which is the dedicated film website. And there's also a 5-CD box set of music that relates to the documentary that has already been released and is available.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. It is fantastic. Now, okay, you're 58. You performed at the White House. You performed at Carnegie Hall. There's not a great venue anywhere in the world where you haven't performed. You bridge classical guitar and rock guitar. You've won Grammys. You came out as a lesbian feminist a few years ago and got standing ovations for doing that. My God, what is left to do?
What is left to do? Well, there's always a mystery around the corner, and I find that exciting. But right now, I'm looking forward in April to doing another world premiere. I've had many composers write works for me, and this one will be by Chris Brubeck, who is the son of the late Dave Brubeck.
Wow.
Yes, and it's a very jazz-inflected concerto that I'll premiere with the Maryland Symphony in April. And I will, in the following fall, in November of 2015, give a world premiere that was co-commissioned by Carnegie Hall and the Harris Theater Chicago of a work by American composer Richard Danielpour for me to present with a wonderful mezzo from the opera, a star from the Metropolitan Opera, Isabel Leonard. So that'll be in November of 2015. But April is the Brubeck, so I really look forward to that.
Sharon, I mean, one of the things that I love about your work is that for you, music is music. And when I first knew you, when you were working and friendly with Rosalind Turek, the great pianist, of course you were doing Bach on guitar.
Yes.
And I still have those records, and they're absolutely magnificent. But now it's Brubeck and jazz, and it's just, you just effortlessly move from one thing to the other. If it's music and it's good, I play it, and I play it well. That seems to be your motto. Tell a little bit about, since this is Women's Media Center Live, about what you faced as a woman, and the first really to break into international prominence on classical guitar.
Well, I really began studying guitar by accident. Our family moved to Italy from Minneapolis when I was 9 years old. And because an older brother asked for lessons, and when he realized it was classical, not Elvis Presley, he bowed out before the first lesson. And out of family duty, I take his place because my parents were excited about the teacher who had studied with Segovia and toured all over Italy. So that was my humble beginning. And I then, when we moved back a year later to the States, got very involved in science, model rockets, and my father used to say, you can't launch your rockets until you put an hour in on the guitar. So that's how they bribed me to keep practicing.
Wow.
And eventually, I was 14 and won a competition, and the award was to perform in front of 10,000 people with the Minnesota Orchestra. And that's really when I decided that I would make guitar my life's work, not sending worms and grasshoppers up into space. So it was
but at that point, men bestrode the field like colossi, and I'm sure they didn't welcome you with open arms.
Well, it was an eye-opening experience to go to a big festival as a student and find that there were 50 guitar students and only 2 of us were girls. I was probably about 15 at that time. So I really learned that I had to be on my A game at all time. And as far as climbing to the top in a field that had always been dominated by men, I just simply believed in what I was doing, and I had a passion for it. So when Juilliard asked me to create the very first guitar department, there was no question of gender. And winning a Grammy for the first time in classical after a period of barren, no classical wins in guitar for 28 years. That was really great to be able to be a pioneer there. I'm still the only woman who has received a classical Grammy as a guitarist. So that's unusual.
Wow.
I'm still the only woman who has ever recorded with the New York Philharmonic.
My God, are we still back in the dark ages, you wonder? But at least there's you. Let's pause for a second and hear a clip of your amazing work. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a piece called Poro by Gentil Montana. And of course it's you on the guitar with Tiago de Mello on organic percussion, right?
Yes, and this is part of the 5 CD box set that was just released, and it's a really fun work from Colombia.
Fantastic. And that is in Sharon Isbin of 5 classic albums brought by Warner Classics. You know, you said, you've been quoted as saying that you took to the guitar partly because of its range. The quote that I'm looking at says, "The guitar can capture the cry of the human voice because we can create the sound in between notes, which you cannot do on the piano, but you can if you're a singer or a violinist." That's fascinating. Say a little more about that.
Well, by sliding the left hand between the frets, we're able to get that wisp of sound, which is very much what you would hear a singer do, and we call it a portamento. So it creates a lyricism that is even more melting, I would say, than what you can get just between the keys of a piano.
Mm. It's so wonderful that you're on the planet and that you did not go into space, because we would have lost so much incredible beauty. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for your art and your feminism and for being the one woman, so forth and so on. And let's hope many more follow in your track, which they will, because you blaze the path.
And thank you for being such a groundbreaking feminist who has made the world a much better place for so many women.
Well, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
One last pause here at Women's Media Center Live, where I persist in being Robin Morgan. Can't think of anybody else to be right now. But when we return, we'll come back with some fighting words, and at the very end of the program, a last straw.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again, just in time for Fighting Words. The African American Policy Forum, AAPF.org, grab your pencil and get that down, aapf.org, has released a new report. Kimberly Crenshaw, one of the founders of it and the mother of the concept of intersectionality, is behind the report, and it is extraordinary, and I urge you to get it. It's basically called Black Girls Matter: Pushed Out, Over-Policed, Underprotected. You may remember the initiative by black feminists, supported by white feminists, to question President Obama's Our Brother's Keeper campaign, focusing only on black boys. The White House never really retrenched, although they will offer a sop now and then in referring to it and girls. But the $20 million a year initiative, which I gather the president intends to pursue after he's out of office, is still focused exclusively, if not largely, on boys. So this is a follow-up report that shows just how bad things are for black girls. In fact, worse. It's a shame to have to compare and compute suffering, but that's what we're driven to in order to get girls on the map. What makes this report new is that, first of all, it includes what young black women themselves say about school. This has been an invisibility in educational policy debates. Girls fly below the radar, because studies on zero-tolerance policies focus exclusively on boys. So this report throws the first spotlight on what happens to girls at the margins, and why school reforms have to be better informed by gender and race issues and how they intersect. So the girls tell their own stories. While the long-term consequences of boys dropping out of school have consumed public policy experts for a long time, evidence surfacing in this report suggests that the negative consequences of dropping out on girls' economic future and their families are even greater. This is no surprise. Girls who drop out face poorer job prospects, a higher likelihood of economic dependency, and then more long-term consequences for their children, so that you get a generational hand-down of poverty and lack of education and lack of access to the society and to power and to good jobs. The report challenges both civil rights advocates and feminists to broaden our advocacy agendas to explicitly include girls of color, because if we don't do it explicitly, they get overlooked, which is a nice way of putting it. One young woman in this report tells a story that just breaks the heart. It's about being incarcerated for having been tardy to school. And her story emphasizes the totally illogical nature of the school-to-prison pipeline. She was taken into custody for accumulating tickets for arriving late. But then, after being incarcerated, she naturally missed more school. She was also traumatized by being incarcerated, and like many others, she was dissuaded from pursuing her education further. This is outrageous. While the world focuses on the plight of black boys, and it should be given attention to, but in fact, black girls' rates of disciplinary correction are sometimes 10 times the rate of their white female peers, and the surprising fact of the matter is that the racial disparities they face are much higher than the racial disparities black boys face, so they are at the intersection of getting it both ways, gender and race. It's a really important report. I urge you to go to African American Policy Forum, AAPF.org, and it's right on the first page of the website. You can't miss it. Black girls matter. Pushed out, over-policed, and underprotected. These little girls deserve better of us, and we better be there for them. And that's it for today. Join us next week when our millennial correspondent, Julie Zeilinger, will interview young writer Pippa Biddle on the questionable fad of voluntourism among millennials. We'll also talk with Bridget Davis about her novel on chasing a dream of Nigeria as her ancestral country. And Lydia Cascio will be here, the internationally celebrated and frequently targeted by death squads Mexican journalist who refuses to stop investigating female sex slave trafficking and violence against women. Wow. This program is syndicated, but if you cannot find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com for the show and the archive of all our previous episodes. And we're at iTunes worldwide. There you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton. Senior Producer, Crystal Williams-Chancellor. And our founding sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. And here's a last straw, but one to cling to. Monarch butterflies, recently declining in alarming numbers because of natural habitat loss in the United States, are now on the rebound. So why give up now? Besides, you want to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.